Okay guys, so we're going to do the first video in the comparison videos to the Harley Davidson Sportster S. We're going to write a whole bunch of different brands that are in that market space and in that price point range to see how good they are compared to the Sportster S. First one was going to be the Indian Scout. Now, I wanted to ride the 101 so I could compare the top dog to the top dog. However, they're not available. They are very hard to find right now. Coming up toward the end of August, the local Indian dealership that I'm working with is going to have demo days with the truck out there. We're going to drive a whole bunch of Indians and review them all, and I'll look at the 101 at that time. In the meantime, the top dog that they had available for me to ride was the Scout Sport. I went ahead and rode it and took all the footage, came and did my comparison video to make sure we're looking at apples to apples, and it wasn't a situation where the Sportster S was just going to be so high that there was no sense in the comparison. And I'm satisfied that, and I think you'll be satisfied watching this video, that it is a very good comparison. So let's get into that right now. Okay, a quick insert here, just a few seconds to let you know that on the ride, which is the next 10 minutes of the video, some of the background sound goes up and down. I apologize for that. I don't know what was going on with the recorder, but we'll try to get it corrected in future videos. So 10 minutes of riding, and then we're going to get right into the actual review, apples to apples, numbers to numbers. See you in a few minutes. Okay, so this is the new Indian Scout. This is the sport model. We are going to be taking this one for a test drive. I want to say thank you to Steve, who is out here at Indian Motorcycle of Fort Collins. They have a whole bunch of other brands as well. You guys got to check it out if you're in the area. But let's go ahead and get on the bike and see how she feels. The clock is kind of tilted to the side there. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure that can be adjusted.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
And of course, there's Siri trying to get into all of this. Let's keep going. Okay. Definitely very, very lightweight and tiny. When you're on it, it feels a lot smaller than what it looks like. Nice sound to it from the factory. Pretty well balanced. I'm going to close the visor so we can get a better conversation going on. There we go. Suspension is relatively hard. It's not too bad. I've been on much worse, but it is pretty hard. Let's get going here. It's a good road to test it out on. Tires are very rounded, so it leans easy, but it doesn't have that pointed ridge effect that you have on the Harley Davidson Sportster S. This one's a lot smoother and a lot more confidence inspiring. Okay, let's keep going on here. Now that little sport windscreen up there does absolutely nothing.
As far as wind protection, it's definitely just a style element. I'm getting full wind on my chest. And these mirrors, unless you're constantly willing to lift your arm all the time like I'm doing now, you really can't see very well out of them. Looks like they're going to be very easy if you want to flip them up. It won't be as cool looking, but it definitely would be more functional. I love the gear readout. I love the looks on the screen. Let's flip it around a little bit here. There, I like that even better. That is a very cool screen. Fitting position, or the footing position, is not too bad. I probably would prefer a little bit more mid controls, but I might be a little cramped because this bike is not very big. But the engine feels good. The suspension is very sporty. It talks to you quite a bit. You can feel everything going on, and it is harder than what you would think. It's not harsh. It's not too abrupt, but it's definitely harder than what you would think taking a look at it. I know that the rear suspension is adjustable on these. Seating position is relatively comfortable. I am leaning forward. This would probably be a great bike for a couple hours, but not beyond that. For if you have, if you're older or if you have back problems, it's definitely not going to be an all-day bike, but that is not what this is designed for anyway. The clutch is super smooth, but it's going to be a couple of miles that you're going to have to go to get used to the shift points on here. The friction zone is, because the clutch is so light, the friction zone is a little bit harder to pick out. Cows! We got cows! We're going to find a place to stop right up here and take a walk around on the bike. Okay, so you do have your adjustable springs back here on the back of the bike. Fit and finish is much better than what we experienced on the Harley Sportster. Belt drive, everything looks really good as far as the fit and finish on this bike. Here, I don't know if you can see the sparkle in here, but there is some sparkle in the paint. Here is the mounting for these, so I'm sure you can flip these up if you wanted to get a better view, be a little safer. You have your push button start right down here, as long as you have your key, which I have in my pocket. I would definitely change these up to black. Standard bullet um, reflectors. You got your front suspension there. Very good looking, but not effective windscreen. Coming around to this side, you have your exhaust. Now, I like the format. I like the style. I think that this guy here is a little bit too big. But of course, we're all going to aftermarket our our exhaust, so that's not a big deal. Fuel cap on this side. This seat is pretty darn comfortable. I will tell you, it's got great lumbar support. It feels good. These little gel ridges, everything about the seat feels great. So I'm very happy with that. Yeah, 1250cc engine. Bike is a good looking bike. Well, let's get it back to the dealership and we'll go from there. So Fort Collins Motorsport, which houses Fort Collins Indian. Lots of options in here. Whether you're looking for a Yamaha, Royal Enfield, it looks like they're even going to be carrying Buell. Of course, Indian. This is a good place to come and check out. I'm going to tell you a little bit later on my experience with Indian dealers here in Colorado. And this is the first time that it has met my expectation.
Okay guys, here is the paper review of the Indian Sport Scout and what my thoughts are after riding it and really thinking about the things that happened on the ride. So let's get into some numbers first, and we'll take it from there and give you some opinions afterwards. The first thing to cover is the fuel capacity. Now this bike has a slightly higher capacity than the Sportster S at 3.4 gallons. The weight of this bike actually moves it up into the middleweight category. It is 547 pounds, which is a lot for an entry-level bike. Now the torque on this bike is going to come in at about 82 foot-pounds and hits right in the range of 6,300 RPMs. This bike also has 105 horsepower, but I could find nowhere to tell me when that 105 horsepower peaks at. The fuel economy on this bike is approximately 50, maybe just 51 miles per gallon. And in practical terms, that gives us a range of 153 miles on average. And that surprisingly comes in at a cost of only $13,499 starting. Now this bike, along with the other bikes that we're going to be reviewing, you can add a lot of options on, but that is a really good starting price. Now we get into the opinion part of this review, and these are my opinions and impressions riding both bikes relatively close together. I found the fit and finish to be incredible, especially considering the starting price point. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put the fit and finish at a 6. And if you notice, the clock was a little bit off, but that was adjustable, the angle of it. But everything else on this bike I really think is quality. Now, when riding this bike, I did find it to be very stable for its weight and size. I'm going to give it a 5. Heavier bikes are just going to do better here, but this bike held its own and was relatively stable, especially on the bumpy roads. In dealing with the wind, this bike also came in at a 5. It was surprisingly better than I thought I would get on this bike. Just pretty stable when riding in that crosswind. Now for sound, I would give it a 5. Again, just a good middle of the road performance. The sound wasn't unpleasant in any way, shape, or form. And we all know we're going to upgrade the exhaust whenever we get a bike. So that's kind of a given. From the factory, I give it a 5. Suspension was a 4. There is some room for improvement on the suspension on this bike. Now remember, this is the Indian Sport Scout. It is not the 101, which we will be comparing in the future. Again, this is subjective, but the design, the appearance of the bike, I'm going to give it a 6. I do think the left hand, the kickstand side is not as finished as the other side, but it is definitely almost there. It is definitely an improvement over the Sportster S. So I'm going to give it a 6. And finally, value, which is the cost versus the content. I'm going to give this bike a 7. You get a lot when factoring in that starting price of $13,499. Oh yeah, and one more category, aftermarket support, a 4. There's just not a lot that's not from Indian that's available for this bike yet, so a solid 4. So when comparing the two bikes, the Sportster S and the Scout Sport, I highlighted the winner of each category. The Sportster S comes out in being slightly lighter, slightly higher foot-pounds, and a pretty good bump in horsepower. Everything else, the Sport Scout wins. Now, I will tell you that in riding these bikes, the Sport Scout is a lot easier to control, and you can be effectively much faster in it. Under every circumstance, whether it was the suspension, it was under wind, the Sport Scout will go faster in real world riding than the Sportster S. Okay guys, so that's what my opinions are. That's what the facts are as well in those two comparisons. Thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with the sound issue that I had during the ride. We have another bike coming up to throw into the mix here to compare to these two bikes on the next video. Please watch out for that. And again, as always, I really appreciate you being part of the channel. I'll see you on the next video.